For those that don't know, give kind of that elevator pitch. What is Gap Intelligence?
Gap Intelligence is a counter intel provider, essentially. So we're out there in the stores. We have collectors across the country that go out there and they're using an app. They will collect SKU-specific pricing and promotions. Meanwhile, we're scraping the websites for these major retailers that we track. And imagine doing this now week over week. We have yearly trends now. I can see the trends shaping in the marketplace. We can see the tendencies of certain merchants.
Welcome into the Independent Thinking Podcast. This is your host, Rob Stott. Coming out of PrimeTime, we've got our last sort of episode from the show, but it's a fun one because, what I find in this is that for as large as we know this industry can be, whether that's retail or you look at the individual verticals that we serve here at Nationwide Marketing Group, it's cool to see also how small, the industry really is. How many people you can bump into, no matter where you happen to be or where you happen to work. And that was the case at PrimeTime when, come to find out that during our consumer electronics merchandising session, there was a portion of that discussion that was led by the team at Gap Intelligence, and specifically Scott Peterson, an industry analyst there at Gap. And Scott and I had crossed paths previously in our roles, and neat to be able to catch up with him and see some of the advances he's made, some of the advances that Gap has made as well, and just a unique kind of funny coincidence to have them there with us at PrimeTime, and catch up, and of course then turn that into a podcast. He had a lot of great things to say, and a lot of great insights to provide to retailers about. If you don't know Gap, they track sort of the pricing and promotional, pricing for products over every week of the year across so many different product categories, and with a main focus on a lot of consumer electronics categories. So that's why they're there presenting, talking about sort of the trends as we look to the back half of the year of Black Friday, and how it's extended beyond just a day to almost an entire season, the role that Amazon Prime Day has had over the years, and all kinds of stuff. So neat to be able to dive into that with him, and of course, like I said, just catch up and see what's going on. So that's what we did during PrimeTime, and in a cool venue too. If you're watching this on the video version, we had quite the backdrop behind us there in Nashville, at the back of the Music City Center. So a lot of fun doing that, a lot of fun catching up, and now a lot of fun to be able to share this conversation with you. So let's dive into it. This is Scott Peterson of Gap Intelligence here on the Independent Thinking Podcast. All right, we are back on the Independent Thinking Podcast, changing up the view. We were just in a previous episode, or it might be a future episode. I don't know how I'm going to publish these things, but we were looking over the show floor from the staff lounge, and now, it's hot, a little hot. We're not inside the convention center, right outside on a terrace, looking over the beautiful city of Nashville behind us, Mr. Scott Peterson.
Yes, we are. It's my first time here, actually.
First time in Nashville.
Tennessee in general.
Wow.
It's all new.
Well, welcome. I think this is like 6 or 7, if I count right. One of my favorite cities to travel to. Business, pleasure, whatever it might be. There's just a lot that goes on here, and you're getting to experience it.
Yep.
Yeah.
We did Broadway last night. Got some good food, got some good beers. That's one thing that I do know a lot about also, because coming from San Diego, that's basically our culture, craft beer.
There you go.
Yeah.
It is. There you go. Well, appreciate you joining us. Scott Peterson, Senior Analyst, TV and Smartphones.
Correct.
For Gap Intelligence. We have a history. This is kind of fun to get to do this, man. It's been a while. I heard your name was on the docket for our CE merchandising session this week. I was like, I got to reach out. I got to get back in touch with Scott. So
love that you did.
Yeah, right? So happy to be able to do this. For those that don't know, those watching right now, listening, whatever they might be doing, give kind of that elevator pitch. What is Gap Intelligence?
Yes, great question. Thanks, Rob. So Gap Intelligence is a counter intel provider, essentially, and the way we track the market, the metrics that we track, are really aligned with like the 4 Ps of marketing. It's the price, the promo, the placement, and the product that's out there. So we're out there in the stores, brick and mortar, on a week-to-week basis. We have collectors across the country in about 2 handfuls worth of regions that go out there, and they're using an app. They will collect SKU-specific pricing and promotions. Meanwhile, we're back on the web, scraping the websites for these major retailers that we track, so we can have the in-store price, the online price. And imagine doing this now week over week, month in and month out. We have yearly trends now. I can see the trends shaping in the marketplace. We can see the tendencies of certain merchants, if they're assorting one brand or one segment or one product category more or less. That all basically jumps to in the Gap data.
Right. So what I love about it, and I always had an appreciation for it at the previous job, but being here now at Nationwide, we've got our Prime Metrics data, which is kind of that point of sale. So it's the sell-through. You guys have a different approach, and it's sort of like what's in stock now and kind of the pricing on it. So you can tell not only what's being sold, but at what prices, and is it sale, promotional data, that sort of thing. So it's a different approach to what we're doing, but still really important work.
Absolutely. You bring up a really good point. It is absolutely complementary to sales results. It is. I compare the sell-through, the sales data, as having like the score of the game. You can watch ESPN just on the bottom. I didn't watch the game, but I know who won the match, who won the game. Niners beat the Packers, 25-17, whatever. What did they do?
I noticed you didn't say Chargers there, because
Chargers
they're
not in San Diego.
A little
anymore.
bitterness there.
I'm not even sure if they exist. It's okay. I wasn't a huge super fan, but again, it's really honestly back in San Diego. There's hardly any people with Charger gear.
Well,
I was surprised.
They probably burned it.
They did, that was a very conceited effort for that too.
But anyway,
but Gap Intelligence data is the fundamentally complementary to sales and sell-through. If you need to know the score of the game and that's it, that's great. I just watch the bottom of ESPN. I can sound smart at the water cooler. I can talk to my sports buddies a little bit, but I don't really have that fundamental understanding of why it happened. I believe the technical term is causal data is what we have. If your boss says, well, sales are up and sales down, why? And you're scratching your head, that's when you reach for Gap Intelligence.
So you're kind of getting more into that, you're kind of diving deeper into the box score, right? So you see the yards per carry, or whatever, how many RBIs were hit that day by who, and that sort of stuff.
We got all of that. Is this price the Black Friday price? How often has this price been duplicated? What other brand is doing this same price moving as well in the same segment? It's ironic a little bit because we actually don't have sales data. I literally have no idea what's out there selling, which sounds a little silly, but I'm able to be a very effective analyst because we have the landscape of data. What's out there in the landscape is what's selling. So if something ain't out there, it's not getting those chances to sell, and that's why your sales are like that. Or one of the things that we've actually, I guess we bust people on is what's supposed to happen.
Right.
Well, we're looking at the Gap data. We don't see this product. Well, we were supposed to have that last month, so your data is wrong. We can actually show you pictures of the field of that Walmart end cap or that Walmart area where your product ain't there. And so what's supposed to happen, and then you were supposed to see sales results, you didn't see it. It's like the reality of what's out there in the channel. If you saw it on the first slide and on our website, it says eyes and ears in the marketplace.
Yep.
That's basically it. We strive to be sort of that channel observer that you can depend on. It's every week. It's very regular. We're very objective.
Yeah.
And we don't have the sales, so we're not on anyone's side.
No, I love that. And I mean, the description is perfect, right? The eyes and ears in the marketplace and kind of seeing what's going on. And to specific category, we mentioned your categories, TV, smartphone. What categories are consumer electronics based right now? Is that right for Gap Intelligence?
Oh, no. We have a huge home appliance hub as well.
All right.
And
this is the reconnection. Some things have changed,
countertop cooking
right?
is
awesome.
Blowing up. All the air fryers that people are shopping for on Black Friday.
Yeah.
We have categories, and this is how Gap grows.
Yeah.
We scale up based on our client need into adjacent categories. So Gap started as a printer company. Yep. So we tracked printers and the consumables that went into them, and then one of those printer vendors, Epson, made a digital camera. I don't know if you remember this. Back then, Epson had digital cameras.
Yep.
Gwen Stefani was the celebrity spokesperson for it too. Yeah, it was a long time ago. And so they approached Gary Allen Peterson, who is Gap Intelligence. So that's a fun fact for the podcast. That's literally what Gap means.
Awesome.
It's Gary. And so they approached Gary and said, hey, we love what you do for printers. Can you do this for digital cameras? And he said, absolutely not. Oh my God, I'm going crazy with growing this company and stuff. So I was actually hired on in 2010 to take over Gary's role from CEO, printer analyst, and digital camera analyst. He said, hey, what you know about cameras, I can't teach. I'll teach you how to push buttons on Excel and make analysis happen. So it's been a dream ever since, man. I've been in the,
And to watch it grow, I mean, when we talked last, I think you guys were getting into the wearables at that point because they started to explode, right?
Probably.
So late 2017, 2018.
Checks out.
And right, you start to see these it's kind of a really similar story now that I think about it to, what Nationwide's doing, right? We talk to our members all the time about how we've got our core categories. It's CE, it's appliances, it's furniture and bedding. Outdoor has grown. Well, that actually outdoor would be kind of the first expansion, right? Into our members have needs. They're starting to see trends in their marketplaces. We've added outdoor. We've added the flooring category with partnerships. We've gotten deeper into custom integration. We're looking at hardware and the tools and things like that, countertops, cabinets. Like you start adding those things as they become necessary in the business. So kind of, very different business models, right? And kind of what we're doing, but neat to see that, you scale up when the need arises, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the Gap Intelligence way right there. And interestingly, if you could travel back in time like 10 years ago and be like, we're going to be tracking outdoor and furniture, and be like, what were the CE guys? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
This was the joke. When I started at Gap in like 2010, 2011, we would have company meetings, and Gary's like, we can scale up and do this, and he's like, heck, we can even be tracking refrigerators. And boy, that got a laugh. Everybody laughed. Refrigerators? Why would we do that? That's home appliances. And now if you look at the category list that Gap has, that magnet, having refrigerators, has expanded our home appliance hub tremendously. And then what also happens, and I'm sure this is how the same thing with Nationwide, is someone from some company moves laterally or into an adjacent, say, hey, I loved you guys when I was at my old role, but can you do something for my new role now?
Yep.
And we do the due diligence and we make it happen.
It's awesome. Yeah, you kind of explained this at the top, but for a retailer out there, what would they come to you for, or how would they utilize the data from Gap Intelligence in their business, in their day-to-day?
This is actually a really good question because we don't currently work with a lot of retailers. I mean, not to reveal our whole business book here, but we are very heavily weighted on the actual vendors themselves.
Yeah.
So think the LGs, the Samsungs. They make refrigerators, so they're like, hey, can you do this too? So it's like the brands that are in the marketplace themselves. We work with the licensees and stuff too, but because we're tracking like SKU specific information, it's really important for like the product managers at these companies to really have that eyes and ears information on the market. The thing that we run into, which maybe this is, I'll maybe turn this around to a question, is one of the things I've bumped into with merchants, with retailers, is they don't like to pay for stuff. And they're kind of used to getting free data from the vendors they work for. So that's been one of our hurdles, like penetrating into a merchant as a Gap client. Is that similar to your business?
Oh, for sure. It's Primemetrics. Perfect example is a platform, right? It's our sell-through data. So POS, point of sale data that we aggregate. Our members have to opt into sharing that POS data, which to them that's like the holy grail for them, right? That information, wanting to make sure. So, I mean, a lot of guardrails are put in place. There's anonymization of that data and things like that. So you could see what you're doing, how you're performing. Free, but it's one of those things you gotta consent to do it and things like that,
that's
right?
What I'm saying.
That's the term. So
here I am trying to sell you data at Gap Intelligence, like we get this from Nationwide for
but
free.
But it's different data. Yeah. It's different data, which I love, right? So but the more. It's kind of cliche, right? The more data that you have, the kind of, it might feel messier as an analyst. I'm sure you're looking at numbers all the time. Your head must spin. But the more data you can get access to, right, it sort of paints a clearer picture for you.
Yes. And this might be a challenge that you guys see also is once you produce this data, you have this data.
What do you do with it?
Yeah, and you got a lot of horses, and you're feeding them water, but these ones aren't drinking. And you're like, this water's good for you. And you're like, I know it's good for me, but I'm just... I compare it also to like a gym membership sometimes, which is maybe a negative connotation. Like, it's like, I feel healthier having it, but like, did I go to the gym today? Absolutely not. Am I going to go to tomorrow? I'm going to tell myself I will. I'm going to use the Nationwide tomorrow. Oh, I'll use the Primemetrics. I'll use the Gap data tomorrow. Like, it's... How do we get our clients to like engage with it?
Right.
I find that we do best when we have like a power user or somebody, like I said, that's been implanted from another role at a different company where they were tasked with that, coming in to use the data because it's good for you. We know you're going to make smarter, better decisions, but getting it and how do I use it? It's easy to understand the sell-through and the sales data. And this is why I think our data is extremely complementary to your data because we don't anonymize it. So I can tell you if there's something that's an exclusive SKU, club store exclusives is like one thing that's popping to mind. We have that product, we have that part number, we have everything. Whereas in other sales data providers, that would be masked to
Absolutely.
to prevent to protect your relationships with the people that are giving you this data. Yeah,
Absolutely.
So we go and get the data ourselves. We don't have any. We're not on
it.
anyone's side, so we can like bust kind of the reality of what's
so
happening.
I want to dive into. We've been talking a lot about the how and the why. I want to dive into the what, but what you just mentioned is something I think would be cool to hear, since you have the perspective of the early days. Now, when you're talking about collecting that data, was it like going into the stores and using, writing down what the actual physical prices were, and what's it like today?
Similar.
So it hasn't changed.
No, it has. So actually, going back, I told you my origin story.
Yeah.
I was working at a Ritz camera. I was a camera shop guy. And this guy, Gary, would come into my store every week. And he would never buy anything. I make commission, people. Like, I am not making money unless I'm out here selling. And this guy comes in.
And just would never buy it. You were like, why does he keep coming back?
Oh, we talked about a memory card last week. I think he's back. Here's the memory card. He's like, no, I don't want to buy it. And I developed a rapport with him. He has the same last name as me, Peterson. So I was like, hey, Mr. Peterson, coming in my store, right? And he would always, with a pen and paper, be writing down the pricing. And I know that he shoots with a Canon DSLR, but he's writing down these Nikon pricings. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, that's not for you. No. He's like, I work really closely with the brands and I help them understand the shelf, is what he told me. So I was like, all right. Not going to buy anything from me. Not going to waste my time with him. But I'll talk shop with him because he's a camera guy when he comes in. So now I'm reading the old Gap Intelligence reports, and it says things like sources at Ritz Camera indicated that a Canon shipment is inbound. He's like, you were sources, man. I was like, really? And so that was when he's like, well, he knows about cameras I can't teach, but we'll get him in here. But like that, the process of our data collection is extremely manual, and I don't know of a way we can scale it up to where it's not. We have scaled it up. We have multiple regions now across the country, coast to coast. They're basically independent contractors. Instead of a pad and paper, we've traded that for an app now. So we have developers in-house that developed an app, and our collectors go out there with last week's set of data. They can confirm, take a photo, change the price, add a promo, and all of it gets synced to the cloud.
It's crazy, but impressive too. That's how it's done, and it's still being done that way. Just using the tools of today.
Yeah, it was. You're bringing me back, Rob, because that was. My Tuesdays I would go out to retail, and then my whole Wednesdays I'd sit with my little reporter's notebook, one hand in the notebook and one hand on my 10 key, and just transposing data into Excel,
That's so
row
crazy.
by row by row for every single camera. The world was smaller back then.
But that's awesome.
And the first Gap Intelligence pen that we had, that our Gap's Gary's like, ooh, we're gonna make pens because we're a big company now. We're gonna get our own. It was a little orange cap pen. Like a Bic, right? And on the side of it said, Gap Intelligence, yes, we're writing down your pricing, was the tagline we had on these pens. So I would, so interestingly, Gary would come into my camera shop week over week. When I got hired on at Gap, I became that visit. So I would see all my old friends at the store, and they'd be like, you're the Gary guy now. And to be honest with you, I thought Gary was a student or something, doing a project. I'm like, oh, we have San Diego State, University of San Diego, very close by, in San Diego, where the shop was. So in my mind, this is what you said about assuming something. If you don't have all the information, you're going to assume something wrong. And I just assumed Gary was some sort of college student doing a thesis or something.
That's incredible.
I just didn't ask questions until he asked me if I wanted to join Gap. And then my question was, how much are you going to pay me? Is it based on commission? Because if not, sign me up. Yeah, so that's...
I'm not making it from you. So, no, that's awesome.
Yeah, this was 13 years ago.
That's awesome.
I think this was,
and to where you are today, and when we talk about today, you were in our CE merchandising session, had an awesome presentation, a lot of insights that we could dive into. But a couple of things stood out to me. One being sort of the month that you created, or the season that you created in December.
Yep, buckle up.
Did I say that right? Anything from that presentation, if you had to summarize it, I know there's a lot of data points, right? The most important data point that you shared today, what do you think that was?
Well, I think to the audience here today, because it's all the nationwide clientele and stuff, the message was sort of, we're down now, hanging a little while longer. Hope exists in a couple key kind of technologies where we're seeing momentum and consumer interest, and that the holiday season is really going to be an opportunity to reverse some of the sluggish nature that we've seen.
Yeah.
I really believe strongly that consumers are getting really worn out of just constant promotions, and we've spoiled them. We've spoiled ourselves with like Black Friday starts today kind of thing. So like my error of like being mindful of, or my advice of being mindful of like consumer fatigue transformed into like opportunity of member-based sort of programs. I want to be part of the club. Like I want to shop where I'm part of this club.
Yeah.
So if you can be a merchant or a brand that makes me feel like that as a customer, that's going to be a winning success for the holiday season.
Yeah, and you know, another thing you mentioned too is kind of consumers aren't shopping for the product because of the product now, right? Like that's something that stood out to me, and it's more about that. Similar to how, you know, they're shopping at a store because of that experience and the service that they're provided. You know, it's about also, you know, creating that experience in their home, which I think that's a message we've shared a lot as nationwide, and you can also see it too. I mean, anyone walking around the show floor this week, you'll see, I mean, almost literal homes built on the show floor of vendors that are creating, I mean, it's their ecosystem, so they're showing it off, but they are creating an environment and experience for that customer, and you know, that comes through in the product that they purchase, but you have that opportunity as the independent retailer to influence sort of that customer's, you know, entertainment experience in their homes based on what you're, you know, pushing them towards.
Absolutely. And speaking of like homes, smart home is a thing.
Yeah.
We've had this for years, but it's been very fragmented and very like confusing. And I've got 6 different apps, one for my light, one for my other light, one for my sound bar. You know, it's just too much. So that my message of like kind of this consolidation or like this like ecosystem, I was not shopping for any other smart plugs other than the Amazon Smart Plug, because I knew I don't want an app. I want it to plug in with what I got going already. I know it works with Alexa. I know it works with my everything. I didn't even consider TP-Link or any of the other brands that are big marketplace players. They're probably better plugs, but I wanted the holistic contribution where I could just bark at an Alexa and something will happen, and there isn't like this disconnect. I mean, when smart home seems fun and awesome, but the only people I know that are like doing it are like the major tech enthusiasts or the brainiacs out there, and I'd like to tell you I'm one of those people, but I'm really not. And Apple's a great example of like keeping it simple, and like sophistication is the ultimate simplicity, or I think I got that backwards. But you see what I mean? It's like that vibe I get where the features are second, the brand identity,
the experience is first,
yes.
and it's got to be seamless and simple. You know, to borrow from Apple there, but and then I tried to say the seasonal month that you created, but I'll let you kind of explain what you actually meant by that, because it's a great point, kind of what you brought up, and it goes to another point that you made about, you know, July and how that Christmas in July was always a thing, but Amazon really legitimized it and gave us a reason to, you know, a purpose for customers to shop during that period. But also now, you know, seeing it extend. We've got October coming up, and I'll let you dive into that.
Thanks. Yeah. So I don't want to take credit for this. If anyone's listening, retail me not.
Okay. That was their term.
In 2012, they taglined that. So this isn't even a new phenomenon. This holiday creep has been going on for, I guess, a decade now.
It feels like forever.
And they had the funniest YouTube video. You guys could probably look it up. Octo-November. Just Google it. You'll find the promotional videos. And what really stuck with me was they created a mascot that was a combination of October, November, and December.
Like a pumpkin with a turkey body
You've
wearing
seen
a Santa
this.
hat.
See, now it's
Is
all
that
coming
it?
back to you.
Is that it?
It's turkey legs, Santa body, and a pumpkin head.
That's incredible.
And he comes like busting in the scene like the Kool-Aid Man, like Octo-November, and I just was like, that is it.
That's awesome.
That's happening. And so I've literally been saying that for like the last 10 years now.
That's incredible.
I'm not sure if Retail Me Not really uses this much. By now, it's very familiar.
Yeah.
It's just table stakes. It's like I'm gonna go into the store and see all the Christmas stuff already. You know, everybody jokes about that. You know, like as like a Halloween fan, it's like there's always the memes like when you go in October and there's Christmas music playing already, right? Like it's like give me Halloween time, right? But if you ask
Jack
anybody,
Skellington he was legit in his concerns about losing the Halloween holiday. So
yeah, it's happening. And I mean, everybody listening here has had that experience walking into a big box merchant and you're like, Christmas already? And it's wearing.
The Thanksgiving enthusiasts that get, you know, but there's Thanksgiving still to come. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I'm glad we're not doing the work on Thanksgiving. That was retail really went there because it had to get more sales. We'll get one more day to sell. Everybody come back in on Thanksgiving. And I think I'm glad that we pushed back against that. It just wasn't sustainable, I don't think. And it's Black Friday now, the day after Thanksgiving. But I'm like, the urgency to shop isn't there.
Right.
Hasn't it been Black Friday? My wife said this actually. She's like, hasn't it been Black Friday all month, Scott?
Right.
And I was like, well, yeah, but now it's actual Black Friday. And she's like, so what? And she's like,
Right.
aren't the deals going to be active next week too? I'm like, well, yeah, but
that's where we're at. Like this Black Friday was a day. Like it was the day for years, and that was the day everyone shopped. That was when the deals were live. I remember it slowly creeping into the weekend, right? Because you had your Black Friday day, and then sales on Saturday, Small Business Saturday.
There you go. Oh,
right?
Yep.
So then it would extend, and then Sunday was just a day, and then Monday you've got Cyber Monday,
Yep.
right? And give back to. So it felt like it started to sort of expand into that 4-day weekend of those sales. But now it's like 4 months long. It's incredible.
Yeah. So again, my point of making it. Where's the urgency? Give me my urgency back. Give me part of a club. Oh, I got an exclusive offer, like only for me. Like that's gonna get my dollars out of my wallet versus like extended sale, save today. Which I understand why we've done this. Did it really even make sense to put all my eggs into one single day basket?
Right.
If I don't make that day, like my season's messed up. Like. So now we've got a little more like comfort, but I think it is really wearing on consumers to have such elongated deals. The point I was making about you and I are old enough to remember when Cyber Monday was invented.
Became a thing.
Yeah. And do you remember why it was a thing?
No.
So what we found was everybody went to Thanksgiving, had Black Friday, didn't wake up, they missed the deals, they went to the wrong merchant. They didn't take action hard enough on Black Friday. They waited over the weekend, and then they went into the offices on Monday. The office has internet.
Yeah.
High-speed internet, mind you, okay? This is something that we don't have here back in like 2010.
Yeah.
So people were at their office using their office's high-speed internet to click on the deals, and the retailers and brands were like, what the heck's going on Monday? And Cyber Monday became a thing. It was for everybody that missed out, that needed a stable internet connection to be able to shop on company time, basically.
Oh, that's great. The slacking off of workers is what invented
some of the
Cyber
early
Monday.
years had studies, actually, too. It was like $1 billion lost in
I remember
in
that.
worker
In
productivity due
I
to
remember
cyber
those
sales.
studies.
Yeah,
That's
now
incredible.
Just embrace it.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, that's
Cyber
awesome.
Week. We've got it now. Cyber Week is a thing. It's not even a day anymore. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, so much data that was shared and so many great insights. We appreciate it. Again, happy to have reconnected, man. This was a lot of fun.
Likewise, Rob.
Appreciate that you'll get the chance to walk around our show floor a little bit and be here and, see where this relationship with Gap goes. So nice to have it back.
Well, now that I know that you guys got your own sales data, I feel like we're going to be mashing up a lot more.
Might be talking.
This is like we're going to make. Gary always has the thing where it's like peanut butter and chocolate mushed together makes delicious Reese's. I'm not a huge peanut butter fan. But
are you saying Gap and Nationwide smushed together? All right.
That's a delicious peanut butter
data.
cup. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun, man. And look forward to having more of these conversations in the future.
I hope so. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
You bet.
Awesome, and thanks again to Scott. Like I said, just a neat opportunity to catch up. Something I didn't plan for. Didn't know that he was going to be there until a few days before, and of course, having podcasted and worked with him in the past, figured what better time than while we were together there in Nashville to have that conversation. So as you can see, just a lot of unique insights provided by Gap to our members, and look forward to seeing where they go and how they expand their offering and what might be possible down the road between Gap and Nationwide. So something to keep our eyes on. But in the meantime, appreciate him spending those few minutes with us, and as always, appreciate you listening to the Independent Thinking Podcast, and we'll catch you next time.